Orchids are among the most widely cultivated and collected flowers in the world. They are eye-catching, beautiful, and bright blossoms that stand out. Unfortunately, all of this attention has had a negative impact on orchids. Many species have been overharvested for commercial purposes to the point where they can now command high prices on the black market. Nearly all of the rare orchid species on this list, as well as many other orchid species, have totally lost their wild populations as a result of this. Even worse, the natural habitats of orchids are endangered due to deforestation and other human activity. Here is the list of 10 of the rarest orchids in the world. Number 10. The Sérapias of Pétales Étroits orchid is indigenous to Algeria and Tunisia, where it is extremely rare and has a very small population. The Sérapias of Pétales Étroits are only known from a small number of localities in both countries, and it is estimated that there are no more than 50 mature plants in each group. Sérapias of Pétales Étroits as a whole is home to about 250 people. Contrary to several of the other rare orchids on this list, the Sérapias of Pétales Étroits is severely threatened by overcollection. It is kind of plain in comparison to some of the more popular orchids on this list. Instead, the Sérapias of Pétales Étroits are at danger from the removal of roadside ditches, the trampling and grazing of cattle, and the construction of an animal park. Despite the fact that all orchids are included by Annex B of the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, and are therefore usually protected, there have been no additional conservation efforts protecting the Sérapias of Pétales Étroits. Number 9. The Rothschild slipper orchid, also known as the gold of Kinabalu orchid, is one of the world's rarest and most prized orchid species. According to news reports, one stem of the Rothschild slipper orchid can sell for up to $5,000 on the black market. Unfortunately, the popularity of the plant among orchid collectors poses a major threat to the Rothschild slipper orchid's place in its natural habitat. The Rothschild slipper orchid only grows on Mount Kinabalu in northern Borneo, Malaysia. According to the IUCN Red List, there are apparently less than 50 Rothschild slipper orchids surviving. The IUCN Red List says that despite the Rothschild slipper orchid's popularity, it is still only sometimes grown, and that the bulk of the plants sold come from the natural population. Number 8. The Urban's Paphiopedilum, another rare orchid on our list, has almost completely disappeared from the wild as a result of widespread admiration. According to the IUCN Red List, the population of Urban's Paphiopedilum has dropped by more than 95% over the last 3 generations. Poaching, habitat loss, trampling, the expansion of urbanized areas, deforestation, irregular fires, logging, random cutting, slash and burn farming, and soil erosion pose the greatest threats to the Urban's Paphiopedilum. There are supposedly less than 50 Urban's Paphiopedilum plants left in the wild. Number 7. Although Liem's Paphiopedilum is a rare orchid that is almost completely extinct in the wild, it is commonly available for purchase online or for trade on forums dedicated to orchids. The most vulnerable species to this popularity is the Liem's Paphiopedilum, which can only be found in a single 4 square kilometer area in northern Sumatra, Indonesia. Liem's Paphiopedilum was once extensively dispersed, but overcollection in 1971 led to a sharp decline in the population of the species. Even then, the Liem's Paphiopedilum was close to going extinct, and the natural population has never recovered. Less than 50 Liem's Paphiopedilum plants still exist in an inhospitable area, saving the species of orchid from extinction. Number 6. The threatened Sang's Paphiopedilum orchid can only be found in the rocky woodlands of northern Sulawesi, Indonesia. There is only known to be one location where Sang's Paphiopedilum may be found, and it is 8 square kilometer. Despite being so difficult to find, Sang's Paphiopedilum has been overharvested for both local and international trade. Sang's Paphiopedilum is also threatened by habitat destruction, logging, fires, deforestation, and extinction. According to the IUCN Red List, the wild population of Sang's Paphiopedilum has plummeted by almost 90% over the last 10 years. Thankfully, the last few Sang's Paphiopedilum are scattered far away. This is one of the few things keeping this particular orchid from going extinct right now. Number 5. Like many other rare orchids on this list, the Fairrie's Paphiopedilum's beauty is primarily the cause for its critically endangered status. The petals of the Fairrie's Paphiopedilum have eye-catching purple, white, and yellowish-green patterning. Due to its appealing appearance, the Fairrie's Paphiopedilum is one of the most popularly produced orchids worldwide. Due to the high demand for the orchid, the Fairrie's Paphiopedilum has tragically been overcollected from the wild. Prior to being identified in India, the Fairrie's Paphiopedilum was also discovered in Bhutan. The sole population of Fairrie's Paphiopedilum that is still present now is in the eastern Himalayas, which are located in Assam. The Fairrie's Paphiopedilum went extinct very long after it was discovered for the first time in Bhutan in 1904. Number 4. The Western underground orchid is one of the world's rarest and most unusual flowers. As its name implies, the Western underground orchid spends its entire existence underground. This remarkable orchid blooms even underground. The Western underground orchid lacks any green parts, such as stems and leaves, and does not photosynthesize. Instead, the Western underground orchid receives all of its nutrition from a fungus that grows on the broom shrub's roots. The current population of Western underground orchids is estimated to be less than 50. It can take painstaking digging for hours to find a single Western underground orchid, making it difficult to estimate the population size. Number 3. The Vietnamese Paphiopedilum is no longer found in the wild, but many orchid growers from all over the world still do. Like the majority of orchid species, both the rare ones on our list and species with larger numbers, the Vietnamese Paphiopedilum is overharvested in the wild. The Vietnamese Paphiopedilum is used in horticulture and traded abroad. The population of the Vietnamese Paphiopedilum has declined by 95% over the preceding 3 generations, according to the IUCN Red List. According to the 2003 update on the remaining plants, there may only be 50 Vietnamese Paphiopedilum left. This unusual orchid can only be found in the province of Thanh Nguyen in northern Vietnam. Number 2. The Hawaiian bog orchid is the rarest species of orchid to be discovered in Hawaii. At the time of the most recent count in 2011, just 33 Hawaiian bog orchids have been found in the wild throughout 3 Hawaiian islands. The greatest threat to the Hawaiian bog orchid has been habitat destruction brought on by both domestic and wild animals, as well as by humans. This unique Hawaiian orchid is also threatened by invasive non-native types of plants. Conservation efforts continue despite the Hawaiian bog orchid's dwindling wild population. Recently, conservationists have begun cultivating and replanting Hawaiian bog orchid seedlings in the wild. Conservationists are hopeful that the seedlings will persist for a very long period in order to stabilize the Hawaiian bog orchid population. Number 1. The Zeuxin ralphiana was first rediscovered in the wild in 2010 after being known for more than 121 years solely via records. While finding the actual plants is significant, but only about 18 sterile Zeuxin ralphiana were found. The Zeuxin ralphiana is the rarest orchid in the world due to its scarcity and lack of reproductive potential in the remaining plants. The research team acquired 3 Zeuxin ralphiana specimens in 2010 and donated them to the St. Joseph's College Botanical Garden in Kozhikode, Kerala, India. The orchids in the gardens eventually bloomed, but they quickly died. The habitat of the Zeuxin ralphiana is severely threatened by the area's excessive construction.